back to Historical Context. Today we continue our series on Virginia during the Restoration, and today's episode continues our discussion on Bacon's Rebellion. And if you're joining us for the first time, I would suggest you go back a few weeks and watch the prior episodes as we build up to today's episode regarding the violence and destruction of Bacon's Rebellion. We last left off at the end of July 1676 when Bacon published a declaration which was designed to justify his rebellion. At this point, Bacon had focused his attacks on the native villages in the frontier. In one case, Bacon destroyed an Occaneechi village that had been trading fur with the colonists. This village, according to several historians, had not even been involved in any of the attacks. So the attacks on natives were basically becoming indiscriminate. Now, the destruction of that village was an economic blow to Governor Berkeley and some of the elite in Virginia who were profiting off of the fur trade, and you may have seen a little bit of that in Bacon's manifesto that we read last week. According to Philip Ludwell, the attack killed 40 to 50 natives and 6 or 7 of Bacon's army. Meanwhile, Governor Berkeley takes this opportunity to leave Jamestown and go to his home in Green Springs. This leaves the city open for possible attack. From Gloucester County, Berkeley tries to raise a force which Bacon receives word of, so he actually hears this is happening and reacts by returning to Jamestown. Because of this, Berkeley now leaves the Virginia mainland and sails over to Accomac. And Bacon, now in Jamestown, writes up a crude oath for the inhabitants of the town to take. Let's have a look. 1. You are to oppose what forces shall be sent out of England by his majesty against me, till such time I have acquainted the king with the state of this country, and have had an answer. 2. You shall swear that what the governor and council have acted is illegal and destructive to the colony, and what I have done is according to the laws of England. 3. You shall swear from your hearts that my commission is lawful and legally obtained. 4. You shall swear to divulge what you shall hear at any time spoken against me. 5. You shall keep my secrets and not discover them to any person. Kind of a bizarre oath of allegiance, if you ask me. And Bacon also sends a request out to the people of Accomac, where Governor Berkeley is located. Let's have a look. Of part of our victory and the misery of your own, and Sir William Berkeley's condition, yourselves are judges. How unjust your cause was. How base and sordid the invitation that tempted. How unheard of his and your manner of proceedings against your neighbors and friends, to invade this poor colony and be the first beginners of bloodshed amongst us, his majesty's subject. No warm feelings for the people of Accomac. He continues, let's have a look. And consider how you have been deluded and galled by that abominable juggler, whose cheats and base actions you are all acquainted with, and whose oppressions you have a long time groaned under, which that you may more clearly see and understand, read without prejudice and consider. Clearly, the Accomac colonists are aligned towards Berkeley, and Bacon is making his feelings clear towards these folks. Bacon goes on to mention that he has acted within the confines of the commission signed by Governor Berkeley. Bacon comments further on Berkeley. Let's have a look. For in taxing me contrary to the tenor of my commission, he taxes himself of treason to our sovereign, with no pretense of compulsion can excuse. For it is not to be supposed that his majesty would entrust either a coward or a fool. Bacon asked the people to consider his victories against the frontier natives and to consider how Berkeley has been unable to boost the colony's economy. Bacon asked the island to deliver the, quote, ringleaders of the former government for imprisonment and to be sent back to England for trial. He concludes his letter. Let's have a look. I appeal even to yourselves, if you can justly blame us, if we prosecute you with all extremity of war to the utmost of our powers, which you must expect from them, whom nothing but your own folly and injustice has or can make your enemies. Clearly, Bacon is threatening to invade the island if they do not acquiesce Berkeley and his allies to the opposition. And it just strikes me, Nathaniel Bacon knows that England is not going to like what he's doing based on the oath that he provided. So he's got that problem to deal with, and now he's trying to, stick his neck further out to Accomac and basically threaten to invade that island to get Berkeley and his men under his control. Bacon's men go to Accomac to take Berkeley prisoner, and they pretend they're going to take him to England for trial. That's what's kind of bizarre here. They put up this facade that they're going to take him to England for trial. While Bacon has a group at Accomac, he decides to renew his assault on the natives, plundering their towns and taking captives. In one instance, he raids the Pamunkey natives who had no documented aggression towards the colonists. Let's have a look at the writing here. The good Queen of Pamunkey, during this attack, to save her life, betook herself to flight with only one little Indian boy of about 10 years old, along with her. And when she was once coming back with design to throw herself upon the mercy of the English, she happened to meet with a dead Indian woman lying in the way, being one of her own nation, which struck such terror in the queen that, fearing their cruelty by that ghastly example, she went on to her first intended way into wild woods, where she was lost and missing from her own people for 14 days. So these attacks against the natives are getting, continuously, I think, random in nature, where they're just looking at the nearest native tribe to the frontier and just attacking them to try to drive them back, to repel them back from the frontier, not with any consideration of who their enemy may be. At Accomac, most of the ship's crew goes to retrieve Berkeley, while leaving Giles Bland in charge of a few men behind. Remember Giles Bland? While Berkeley is negotiating his surrender to them, a separate group of men retake the ship without the knowledge of the main group. Berkeley and the crew enter the ship and leave without knowing who is on board. Once out to sea, Berkeley's men seize the ship and take it to Jamestown. That's just incredible. And unfortunately, beyond what I just gave you, there's no other first-hand accounts from anybody on that ship as to the specifics of it. Upon returning to Jamestown, Berkeley raises an army of 600 men and begins to fortify the town. Bacon is out on his campaign, and he discovers what has happened, and he only has 300 men. Let's have a look at the writing. Bacon, in most incensed manner, threatens to be revenged on the governor and his party, swearing his soldiers to give no quarter and professing to scorn to take any themselves, and so in great fury marches on towards Jamestown. This is about to get bad. I mean, it doesn't look like anything reasonable here is going to be happening. On the morning of September 13th, 1676, 6 of Bacon's men charge the palisades of the town, and they fire on the guard. They retreat unhurt, but it is clear from later writings of the council that some of Berkeley's men were killed. The siege of Jamestown has begun. Governor Berkeley orders that no guns are to be fired against Bacon or his men. Berkeley's hope was that Bacon could be talked out of violence through a treaty. At this point, it appears the two parties mostly stay unengaged over the next 4 days, with Bacon's men continuing to work on their makeshift fortification outside of town. Berkeley takes this opportunity to evacuate women and children from Jamestown. Others who were not invested in either side of this fight also appear to have fled. Bacon's account says that women and children were briefly used as a human shield, although we can't totally verify that. At one point, Bacon had to calm his men from desiring to storm the town, explaining that their lives were more valuable to him than the whole world. Bacon's forces have 2 or 3 cannon, which make it to the encampment, and Bacon has these cannon pointed at the town. Berkeley's men see this, and they begin to flee. And the reduction of defense, because his men are fleeing, forces Governor Berkeley back to Accomack. Berkeley actually ends up quietly slipping away in the night, and a few hours later, Bacon receives word that this has happened. So a full-out siege or battle of Jamestown isn't going to be happening. But let's have a look at the writing. Bacon, having early intelligence of the governor and his parties quitting the town the night before, enters it without any opposition, and soldier-like, considering of what importance a place of that refuge was, and might again be to the governor and his party, instantly resolves to lay it level with the ground, and the same night he became possessed of it, set fire to the town, church, and state house. Nathaniel Bacon burns Jamestown to the ground. He does preserve historical records before setting the state house on fire, which is why we have some of them today that we've shared on this podcast now for, easily the last year. But if you've noticed throughout our study of Virginia, we've come up with some missing records. We'll hear that an assembly met, but we don't have any records. I actually think that Bacon did not save everything and that some of them were sadly destroyed in this fire. So Jamestown is burned on September 19th, 1676. Bacon and his men march on to Green Valley and draw up a new oath of fidelity. In the oath, Bacon calls Berkeley a greedy man who betrayed their lives and failed to defend them against the natives. Bacon refers to Berkeley's last return to Jamestown as an invasion with acts of hostility designed to persecute his army. Bacon refers to Berkeley as a traitor, an enemy of the public. Bacon's army remains near the burnt shell of Jamestown, guarding against the landing of any of Berkeley's men. Let's have a look at the writing. Bacon now begins to show a more merciless severity and absolute authority than formerly, plundering and imprisoning many and condemning some by the power of martial law. Bacon actually executes James Wilkinson for trying to escape. So this rebellion has now come full circle. First it was violence against the natives, then it was violence against other English colonists, now it's violence against his own people. So what happens next? The conclusion of Bacon's rebellion, next time on Historical Context.